Welcome back to the table. Today, Ryan and I are back with some more board game news. This time, there was an announcement this past weekend for a Clank Legacy 2 Acquisitions Incorporated Darkest Magic.
Quite a mouthful.
It's a lot of words. I had to slow that one down.
It is quite a mouthful. I mean, the original Clank Legacy was called Acquisitions Incorporated. It took place in the Acquisitions Incorporated universe, which was a universe created by Penny Arcade.
Indeed.
And it carried a lot of the same artwork that you'd expect. There's a lot of the same humor that you'd expect from Acquisitions Incorporated from Penny Arcade. And if you followed that series, a lot of the characters and places and locations showed up in that game as well.
Like Jim Darkmagic.
Who is one of the only characters that we've seen. Well, we've gotten some teases. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
We got a couple teases, but the trailer that they presented was very short on details. But it did show, you heard someone, Jim Darkmagic, and then it showed
Jim Darkmagic sitting on a throne
of candy.
He's got like a little
with lollipop.
Yeah, that was interesting.
A lot of candy around. Was there much candy?
There was a lot.
Another thing you should know, never played the first one. I've played plenty of Clank. Played Clank Catacombs most recently. Never played Legacy, although I want to. You've played all the way through Legacy, right?
There was no real candy involved. And in fact, in the first Clank, you didn't really play as a character. You played as just some like generic people, generic members of Acquisitions Incorporated.
Unless
you had one of the expansions, there was like the upper management pack, and I think the C team it was called. They let you actually bring in some unique cards and play as one of those characters. Jim Darkmagic was one of those characters. There were quite a few characters you could play. It didn't really impact the story at all. You still played through the story of Legacy. And so obviously we're back with a new storyline. Seems to follow the events of Clank Legacy 1, although they did tie a nice little bow around that. So story-wise speculation, I have no idea other than all of that candy. And the fact that it's called Darkest Magic seems to focus on Jim and the logo.
That is true. If this game comes out and there's no candy, I'm going to have some serious questions. Ryan mentioned speculation. We are going to be speculating. In fact, we're going to be speculating probably more than sharing hard details.
We were able to squeeze a little bit of detail out of them.
Barely. I'm not even sure if it's already not public information.
I don't know that it is.
But we did our best as the journalistic people that we are. We asked, hey, can we get some details on this? You didn't say much in the announcement. We got a pretty quick no. Understandably so. I give them a little brief there.
They want to announce it as they go.
But we did get kind of read between the lines, and we got some information. So there's a couple things. One, I think they may have announced this with some social media posts, or at least you could discern this from that. One of the things they're going to have that I don't believe you said was in the original are these personal character journals. You're going to be playing as one of 4 characters.
Yeah, they're like archetypes, actually.
Yes.
And you're choosing that archetype, and you're going to get to fill in your personal details on your own. So you are playing kind of your own character, but this journal seems like it's giving you your own personal narrative as well.
Yeah. So again, take this all with a grain of salt. We know some of this. We were speculating on a lot of the rest of it. But yeah, I do think this is going to kind of, from the jump, be a little closer to Clank Legacy 1 with some of the expansion type content, because you're going to be playing characters. They don't seem like generic characters. One of the cards that we saw allowed you to put in a first name, but it had a last name.
Beekeeper last name, which is one of the characters from C Team in the first Clank. So I mean, there's a ton of design space for these journals. If
Stinger, right? I don't think it was Beekeeper.
Maybe No, I don't. I think it
was Beekeeper. It's right here in a picture somewhere that we're putting up right now.
But to speculate, and again, we like to do these videos because we like to speculate. We like to hear what you people say, everyone in the comments. But I love the idea of potentially having like specific character objectives. If you played Clank Legacy 1, you know they did a really good job with those objectives to complete. There were a ton of stickers going everywhere. And there was like the Acquisitions Incorporated charter, like your main thing where you're keeping track of all the information. But the idea that they have that, like a smaller version of that that's specific to your character, I think is really exciting.
Yeah, so another thing that we learned, and I don't know if this has been said anywhere else either, but this part sounds cool to me. The game is going to have some very specific co-op, what sounds like co-op moments or co-op games within the game where, as a group, you band together and fight against bosses.
It's
monsters or bosses of some kind.
It's an interesting twist for this game, considering the fact that they have announced that this is not not as cooperative as the first game was. Not Not that the first game was cooperative. I want to make that clear. You were still competing with other players. You were still competing for points and things like that. But they've actually mentioned that there's more direct PvP, including like sabotage elements that are going into this game that are optional. You can choose to betray other players. But then there are, it sounds like, some scenarios where PvP is more encouraged, and then some scenarios that are not PvP at all. In fact, they describe to us, like you said, purely cooperative.
A cooperative boss fight sounds cool.
I mean, that seems so crazy to me, the idea of a boss fight in Clank. Like,
think Aeon's End.
Well, I'm wondering if it's going to be more like that, or if it's going to use a physical board and you're going to be moving around into different rooms while a boss. Because technically, like, there's always been that dragon boss, but it's represented just by the dragon track, by the cubes that come out. There's never been like a physical miniature or anything that goes on the map. And I think that could be a cool idea of like actually having to do tactical combat within the rules of Clank, of still moving. I'm not picturing a grid, but I'm picturing something that looks like a Clank board, where you're moving into all these rooms and following arrows just like normal, but also fighting a boss potentially.
One thing I know for sure, and this is not about Clank Legacy 2, but I want to play Clank Legacy 1 now.
Yeah, Clank Legacy was a great experience.
As you may know, we've recently played Clank Catacombs quite a bit. We've done so on the channel a couple of times. And I played with a friend again recently, and it just reminded me, especially where Clank has come to with Clank Catacombs. It is it's certainly one of my favorite deck builders. It might be my favorite deck builder. Like, the experience is just so much fun. The friend I had over is not a huge board gamer, but they really enjoyed their time with it. And this brings me to my question for you out there in the comments, and for us to talk about for the next minute and a half or so. And that is, will they somehow embrace the tile mechanic from Clank Catacombs in this game? Because I love it so much. It is absolutely, if you're going to play plain Jane Clank and not Legacy, Catacombs is the way to go because of those tiles. It just makes the game so much better, and I hope that they do that in this to some degree at least.
I'm of two minds. Having played the original Clank, one of the cool things about it was that the main board that you played was like the overworld map. Like, it was a map of the world.
Well, that I get.
But that was what you played on, so it wasn't like you were just going on one dungeon.
Oh, that's what you played?
You're going around this world, and like as you discover things, it would have you put stickers on the board to unlock new areas, change new paths. You could bring in like cities onto the board, and you could add cities that you discovered through the course of play. And I like that idea of returning to that same map every single game, but just having like new routes, new things to interact with. If they can do it well with tiles, where I think that's cool too, kind of like Divinus. We talked about Divinus on the channel. And that stack of tiles, as you play, you're adding stickers, and those tiles won't come back until the next game. And when you flip that tile, it's going to have some effect because of the sticker. Well, that could be cool, too.
I've got follow-up questions now, because I wasn't familiar with the first one. Were there never dungeon maps like traditional Clank?
I don't want to super spoil, but there was some dungeon-y stuff like that you'd expect from normal Clank as well.
But it sounds like mainly every game you're coming back to this big overworld map.
Yeah, mostly. For the most part, the whole game of Clank Legacy is played on. I can comfortably say two maps.
We don't want to spoil it.
The game is pretty much played on two maps.
I will not press him any further, but what I'm getting at here is, it seems like they could still embrace that overworld map, but what if you go and you find a place and there's a dungeon, and then you play a dungeon?
See, that's what I think would be cool, is if they kept that map of the world to sticker, and you go to different locations, and then you use those dungeon tiles to actually explore a dungeon. Would be pretty cool, because I'm with you. That if you haven't seen our content on Clank Catacombs, we both really, really enjoyed that craziness, and in our live play, it came down to a tile that flipped that just...
We both lost,
We both lost because the tile was so bad. I like those moments. I'd love to see something like that incorporated into Clank Legacy 2.
Yeah, speaking of both losing, when I played with my friend, same thing happened. We both lost.
Yeah.
And you know what? Everyone at the table has lost in 2 of the games I've played of that, and the people involved all like the game still.
And I still love it. Clank, again, is one of my favorite deck builders. So I'm very excited. That's why we wanted to talk about Clank Legacy 2 just a little bit, because we only know a little bit. I'm excited to see where the storyline's going to go. I mean, the first game was funny. If you're a fan of Penny Arcade's humor, it was great. And there were so many inside jokes about, like references and Easter eggs. I expect to see a lot more of that too.
Yeah, and if you know anything out there, please share it in the comments below. If you have some sort of inside information that we don't have, we want to know it. But if you have any questions at all that we absolutely probably can't answer, please make them in the comments below, and we'll get down there and at least talk with you. Until next time, though, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.
This is my legacy.